Alright, so today we are going to talk about how we can use 3D in our tattooing. And I didn't do this for a long time, and I was scared of the workload. It's really easy, and it's very, very powerful. So Sandy McAndy was nice enough to show some interest over on Tattoos.Social, so that's what I'm recording this for, just to have something to do and put out. I will go more into depth on the lighting and everything later. Today I'm just going to really focus on the first 30 minutes or so of modeling, and then after that we'll probably play the rest a little bit faster and handle it for another time. But to look at all the different iterations, and then getting all the way to like, how can we make it metallic? How can we make it chrome? What if we need a chrome mushroom? What if we need a chrome mushroom that's colored and we need to see it from 3 different angles? Because 4 people want them, but they all want them different. So those are the problems that 3D handles, and that's what we're going to do today. So we're going to always start with a primitive. And in this case, we're going to start with a cylinder, and we are able to pull these little handles on the top so that we can make that tapered, right? Because I'm already thinking about the overall shape that I'm going to make. And then at first I did this the way I've done it before, which is use a sphere and then clip the bottom off the sphere, and then use the sphere to boolean itself so that it's like a cap and not a ball. But then I went into the lathe tool. So using the lasso tool is great because one of the edges is always going to be super straight. So you just go way outside of what you need and then use that straight edge to make whatever you need flat. You can use these dots on the outside of the gizmo. This thing is called the gizmo, and it's over here in the corner when you use it. In the lower left-hand corner, sorry. And then I tried a few different shapes, and then I think I ultimately got rid of it and decided to try using a different tool, the lathe tool. And the lathe tool will allow you to draw half a shape, and you're drawing the profile of something that's round. So it's just going to spin it around and then make a round shape of it. But something was happening here where the axis was off center. So I tried to make it as straight as I could. It didn't work, and then so I just ended up making it, making the cap and then placing it later. And you can use these splines like a curve. A curve you're going to be able to draw out, and a path is going to be like the pen tool in Photoshop, where you're making these little anchor points and then curving them one way or another. So I was playing with a couple of different mirroring systems and a couple of different planes, I should say, and then finally got to it. Finally figured it out. But again, I mean, we're less than 5 minutes in, and it's like almost complete, right? It's like the basic shapes anyway. And yes, I can draw one in 12 seconds. True, you're right. So we're still upside down on the time. And I forget what the bottom part of the mushroom is called. I do know the word. I just have not been able to figure it out for 2 days, and I'm too stubborn to look it up. It's great to be able to make that kind of stuff. Anything that repeats, it's awesome. So even if it's like a pattern underneath this mushroom here, that'd be great, right? You can use it, well, I'll show you here in a second. We're going to just use the tools here to repeat one shape, and it'll make that whole bottom side. And the only problem with doing it that way is that the bottom side is going to be very high resolution, even though it's not really going to be something we're ultimately looking at. So you work on that. The way that I do it, the resolution needs to be pretty high in order for it to mesh together without losing a bunch of detail. So we make a sphere. We use these dots on the side to flatten that sphere out. We're going to want to pull it using one of these arrows slightly off center, right? So that it fills one side of that mushroom, but we don't want it to be centered in there because the profile of this thing needs to hang down under the mushroom. It needs to look like it's protruding down and then going back up into this center point where the stem is hitting the cap. Let's see if I can pull this up a little bit. And then we just repeat that shape, and you can see that shape is very tight. I think I go back in and loosen it up. Make it a little bit wider. And you can make it so that they touch, or you can make it so that they're all fins and hang down. I kind of made it like they touched, like it was looping, not for any other reason than when I used to draw them, that's how I used to draw them, and I felt like people might be used to that. So you just click add and you make a repeater, and then you pick the axis you want it to repeat around, and then that shape will repeat around. And then I'm now turning up the resolution, meshing it all together, and then playing with that so that that stays at the resolution I want. Right. I turn back on my other shapes. There's a button here. It's right off the screen. It says solo, and that will allow you to work on only so you can only see the image of the tool. In ZBrush, it's called a tool. Over here, it's called item. I don't know what it's called. I should figure that out. Called something else. Here we go. Items in your scene, I guess. So primitives or whatever it is. So now I'm taking another sphere and shrinking it down, and I'm going to make all of the little dots or nodules or whatever on the mushrooms. And then now I'm gonna fast forward where I copy that around some. Okay, so now that we have just used the clone button to move those around and give this, 11 or 13, the little 13 apostles or whatever, now we can put all this together and copy it again, right? Oh, actually, I'm going to make a base for the whole thing. So what we're going to do first is we're just going to take a cylinder. We're going to make it so that it's like a little bit angled, just like kind of interesting to look at or whatever. And then, oh, this is perfect because I'm going to talk to you about booleans. So we're going to add a model to it, add a primitive, and that one's going to be a torus. And the torus is basically like a donut. And so you can play with the size, and then you play with the thing, with the other handle in the center, and that will allow you to change how thick the actual ring itself is. And then what you'll do is up here, I'm repositioning this as we... So you get that placed, and then up here, if you turn the torus off, the visibility off, and you select that and the base, and you hit Boolean, it will remove that shape from the other shape. So you see how it's cut in there now, and that the torus no longer exists. So that's just how you make like kind of an interesting shape real quick, is you use one shape and then cut the other one out of it, and that makes it pretty easy. It's called a Boolean. You can remember it because it's Boolean, and it makes things go away like a ghost. Right? So now I've just like kind of increased the resolution, softened this a bit, and the mushrooms there, the bases there were 11 minutes in. I might have shortened this by a minute so far. So I'm just figuring out which ones to select, and then we're going to copy those, and then now we have 2 mushrooms. All the dots, we don't have to do anything else. It's all there. We have a big one, a small one, and now we just have to position them on the table or on the stand here, and they're good to go. One thing to be careful of is how they're grouped up, and just make sure that you're looking at this from multiple angles and make sure that they're not overlapping each other. They will go straight inside one another, again, like ghosts. So you want to make sure that there's either a little gap there, or whatever contact points you have are well planned out. And then that's it, dude. We got 2 mushrooms here, and you're good to go. We're under 15 minutes. Now we get into painting and texturing and lighting, which is fun. And that's the whole other 3 hours that I had recorded on this. So I'm messing with the gizmo because this is like the most powerful thing to move anything into place. And depending on how many layers you have selected, you can move the whole thing or part of it, or mirror it from the gizmo, or you can do all sorts of stuff. And this looks a little bit long for me right now, so I'm going to shorten it up. And boom, there we go. So we're going to go, I think from here we're going to start going to paint. And then over here underneath the gizmo, you have this black dot that's got a slash through it. That's the paint, right? And what I would recommend is figuring out your local colors in this like kind of flat lighting environment before you get too crazy with the lighting, because we're going to be able to do a lot of other cool stuff later. So, you know, this piece is pretty simple, right? It's a couple of cones, a couple of cylinders. You know, you use some spheres for the dots. We don't even have to like really warp anything. Even the cap that came off the lathe was pretty easy. So, you know, in keeping with that, we're just gonna color everything. We've got to figure out our local colors. So we want the caps red, everything else kind of like a warmish, yellowish, grayish gray, and then wooden stand for it to be on, or let's just, you know, say for the sake of argument. Now you can make this stuff extremely realistic in here. That's not really my argument today. My argument today is building form and having multiple references of your own that's extremely realistic, without running into any perspective issues, and being able to color it, light it, use the same model many times, and, you know, so you can perfect the model over time. But even once you have the perfect model, right? Like if you make your perfect koi fish, you could then repaint, relight, reposition, move the body, and that's, you know, a lot faster than how I used to do it. I'll say that. So here we go. We got full color mushrooms, and there it is. So I'm not going to voice over this whole thing because I want you to be able to just like get in here and play with it and mess around. But I will leave all the other stuff on here so that so you can kind of watch what I'm doing. So here, what I've done is I've just gone to the same menu that looks like a tree up there and hit add to add a model, add a primitive, and you can just select light, right? So if you select a directional light, it's going to be like the sunlight coming down on everywhere flat. If you use a spotlight, then you can really direct the cone and the intensity and the color of the light. And then you can do that with a point light too. Only a point light shoots light in all directions. A spotlight shoots the direction onto one spot, and a directional light is from like the left to the right or the bottom to the top or whatever. It's across the whole scene. So just be careful of that as you're playing around and know what you're doing. And I kind of try to generally set up a 2 or 3 point lighting scene so that there is contrasting colors on the sides and it's lit up well. And then we also have enough shadows to tell what's going on. So I'm still positioning my first light here, and then I'm going to get the second and third. And I think on this one I'm going to try a painting technique that I've seen on YouTube, but I have not tried myself. So what I'm going to do is I have the mushrooms lit up and painted flat, but then I'm going to go into the paint and paint on top of it where that light is layering onto it. So I'm going to paint it probably not like this, maybe a little bit more orange or blue in the shadows or something, but something to kick those over, to kick those shadows over, that is not just held solely in the light, right? It's a little bit in the paint, but you can't tell because the edge of the paint is the exact same as the shadow edge. So it's kind of just like a neat little thing to play with, and I'm going to fast forward through some of this and get you to that point. So just because this is kind of a bit boring to look at right now, I'm going to go ahead and add a sphere to the scene. We could probably do a dodecahedron or icosphere or whatever they have on there. And then I'm going to use the trim tool to just start slicing off sides of it. And all I'm really trying to do is come up with a rock. So I don't really need the symmetry. I'm going to go ahead and take that off. And then you can make all kinds of shapes, whatever you want. And some of them can be round, some of them can be straight. And depending on the kind of rock you're going for and what that rock has been through in its life, this will obviously be different shapes for you, right? So grab a couple rocks next time you're at the river, and just try to just do something like this. Sculpt a couple that you can use, and then anytime you have a tattoo that needs a couple of rocks, you can save these for rocks to start piling up by your tattoo. And the cool thing here is that once we get this shape all done, then we just start placing them, right? And we do the same thing that we did with the dots, where we're just going to clone one shape, resize it, move it a little bit, make it random enough, stretch it a little bit longer, maybe a little bit taller, just enough to make enough variation so that as we leave this laying around the scene, it looks very natural. And then we will just go ahead and fast forward to the end of that part. Alright, so now I am going to paint on here like I was talking about, but there's not a good alpha. So these are going to be all your brush tips, and they're made just like the Photoshop or the Procreate brushes. They're made just like black on white images. That's what makes it, and you can invert it in here. So if you pop over to Procreate, then you can make this whatever you want. So that's what I'm going to do right here. I had done this little like mushroom drawing thing before I went over there, which I didn't include in the video now. I guess I could have just cut through that. So what I'm going to do is I have a white screen, turn it black, turn the background black, and now I'm going to use a white brush and just try to get a nice, soft, smooth fall off so that I can use, it's like using an airbrush on the model, right? So at first I tried to kind of like build it up, and then I figured, oh shit, it's a computer. Let's just do it automatically. And then I did it this way, and we were good to go. So all you have to do here is save that image to your images, and then go over to, when you get back over to Nomad, on the top of the screen when you select paint, is going to be a little paintbrush that's going to allow you to click down and select what alpha you want. I'm sorry this doesn't all fit on the screen right now. But it'll give you a reason to play around. And so I imported that alpha, and you'll see now when I paint with it, you can see that mark being made. So whatever mark you put in there, it will paint with. If you were to make a mandala inside Geometrica, you could imprint that mandala on here. Does that, if that makes sense? And I think that like once you start to like kind of add these programs together and these little tricks together, it's like, oh, whoa, 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 whoa. I can have a geometric pattern on a mushroom that I could 3D print and then use as reference. And you could use it, you could take a photo, you could just, obviously, all of those tricks. So let's just fast forward through this part a little bit, because I'm going to go on and off of this for the rest of the video. I doubt I'll talk about it very much more, but that's pretty much what I'm doing for the rest of it, right? Is I'm using different brushes to get a little bit different, natural, spackled kind of effect, a layered color feeling, and then I'm going to try to leave the lights where they're at because I want to leave the shadows where they're at, and then paint into that. So if we were to go back to the lighting that is unlit, right? That doesn't have the special lights, you would see it. It would be the mushroom would look oddly colored. It would have a weird purple stripe across it or a weird orange stripe, but it's not going to do that so much if we do it just right and we blend it just right and we use opacity and then we stick right to these shadow edges where we're really pumping things up, right? So let me get through a little bit of that for you. Okay, so you've seen me play with the cap some, and you have seen me play with the stems, and I've just ever so slightly, painted the sides of that stuff to match the light colors that I have. And then you can change the colors of the lights, you can change the colors of the paints. You can even go into Procreate later, and in a hue saturation layer, or I should say, you would duplicate your layer, change the hue, and then you can make it whatever color you want. Here I'm experimenting with dropping a point light onto this so that we can light up the bottom of the mushrooms. I think ultimately I'm going to just go ahead and not go with that, but it was cool to play with for a minute, and you can turn the lights up and down. You can make those shadows do whatever you want. If you're not familiar with realism, um, the way that these shadows play across a face or a form is what is going to tell you what that form is, right? So the way that it works, the way that a person's shadow of their eyebrow falls across their cheek is telling you a lot about what they look like, about what the depth is on their face, right? So I'm just playing with that now, a couple different ones. But I wanted to show you, if you go over here to matte cap, you can make these the same way in Procreate, where like if you just make it solid like this and you paint that ball, that sphere, you can use that as a matte cap, and you can you can paint it however you want, and you can do whatever kind of lighting that you want on it. And so there's a bunch of different ones I have in here, but these black and white ones, right? With the black and white ones, I wouldn't necessarily always use it for my value as I'm going into a piece, like if I'm gonna shade it for a tattoo. However, it's more than enough to get you from the screen to a printer. So if you can print your color image, and then you can print your stencil, and then you can make your color image match your stencil. And in fact, there's a setting up here on the right hand side under the settings that will allow you to add an outline. And I think that's what I'm looking for right here. So let's find it. Boom, highlight, outline, cool. So we can change the thickness, and we can change what we're selecting. And as we select these layers, you'll notice that the outline pops up, and it's going to go around all of whatever we have selected. So playing with the thickness, trying to see what's wrong, because I just didn't get it yet, and then I figured it out. It's like, oh, we can select all these things. Now, doing that in ZBrush, you do it a different way. It doesn't outline it the same. And that's actually pretty cool. I did that other way in this also, but I had to do it per mushroom. I was not able to do it with the two mushrooms on the base. So here we have the two mushrooms on the base and a black and white drawing that we could just print out at any angle. We're at 35 minutes. It has rocks. Those rocks all have faceted sides that we can like clearly see that play against that organic shape. The mushrooms have all concave. The base has convex, or vice versa. Um, and I think that's pretty damn good for 35 minutes. With how much I fast forwarded this video, we're probably about an hour in right now. So do this 3 or 4 times, and you could probably get that far in an hour. I don't think that that's that hard to do. Okay, instead of letting this go on for another 2 hours or something, I'm going to just go ahead and fast forward through the rest of this. You can kind of follow along on there. If you have any questions about anything specific, I'd be more than happy to help you. Or actually, what I'd like to do is get on here so we can talk about it and deal with problems that other people might have too. And yeah, that's it, dude. Real quick crash course. Couple of cylinders, a torus, the lathe tool, the trim tool, And we didn't even really use the move tool all that much. Usually what I use most is the gizmo, and the move tool is probably like the top two until all my forms are in place. And then we start getting into clay tubes and that kind of stuff. But the more you can get your basic shapes pounded in to like where they're supposed to be as fast as possible, the longer you're going to have, not you, but the longer everybody's going to have to really play with this visual part of, hey, what's the mood in the scene around it? And is it going to be, are they going to be light colored? Are they going to be dark colored? Are the dots going to be different? Are the dots going to be somewhat blue? Maybe they're just like a lighter blue. Like it's so much control all the way through up until the point where you render your image. And that's going to be in the very top left. You'll be able to put it on a turntable or use the file. I think it's where the same menu where you pick your file to change to do your render, and you can render this thing with a background, without a background, and then you can go into Procreate and do anything you could do with any other type of 2D image. You can even go into photo editing software and edit it like a photo, or output your black and white drawing from there. So I think it's really powerful. I think that a lot of people are really going to jump on it. I'm trying to find a few artists right now. I got you and a couple other people that I'm going to try to do a real simple one that you've tattooed or that you've drawn or worked on. And then because I know you're already thinking about those shapes and about how the light falls across them and stuff like that. And then I'm going to try to do another one from each artist that's much more complex. Or might take a little bit more ingenuity to get done. I hope you enjoy the rest of this video and that it's beneficial for you, and we should get on a Discord sometime and play around. I do everything as a project-based approach, so come and say, hey, I want to do this thing and I want to get it to here, and I can show you how to do that. There's generally 5 ways to skin a cat, so the more people I can talk to, the more ways I can talk about this and get it out. I like to get it out because I don't have it all perfected. I've spent a lot of time like trying to learn and study this stuff. I need to talk about it so that I know to feel stupid when I don't do the things that I also already know I'm supposed to be doing. So it helps me to talk about it. I'm happy to do this with people and show them and talk about it. Ultimately, this is my goal. I want to teach people this 3D stuff and talk about art and business on the side. So let me know if you have any questions, and the next one will be a little bit more intricate, but hopefully this gets you going. Have a good one.
dark moonlight low, eyes burning acid, still I go. Canvas whispers secrets untold, critics' voices try to leave me cold. Handshake, painful's like the blood, doubt creeps in a silent flood. Mirrors laugh, shadows casting doubts, screaming at the ghost to get the hell out. Burning midnight oil ain't got no fear, fighting shadows till the light breaks clear. Hustle harder, push through the pain, art ain't born without the strain. Curse in the clock, hours disappear, dreams shout louder, drown in the fear. Every stroke of battle just begun, night's a war but I'm not done. Ain't no voices telling me to quit, solitude's the stage where I get lit. Brushes my sword, colors the fight, doubts retreating into the night. Bones ache, fingers stained anew, still I push through the residue. Every line a testament to my grit, midnight oil burning till the end of it. Burning midnight oil ain't got no fear, lighting shadows till the light breaks clear. Hustle harder, push through the pain, art ain't born without the strain. Ain't born without the strain. Curse in the clock, hours disappear, dreams shout louder, drown in the fear. Every stroke of battle just begun, night's a war but I'm not done. Ain't no voices telling me to quit, solitude's the stage where I get lit. Brush as my sword colors the fight, doubts retreating into the night. Bones ache, fingers stained anew, still I push through the residue. Every line a testament to my grit, midnight oil burning till the end of it.
Yeah. Late nights had the glow, eyes on the prize, fingers dancing on the screen, creating skies. Photoshop's a battlefield, layers misplaced, procreate nomad tools I embrace. Painting on the wrong layer, heart sinks low. Gotta pick myself up, learn and grow. Self-marketing's a beast, shouting to the void. Insecurity's a shadow I've gotta avoid. Keep grounding, keep shining, never back down. Every stroke, every pose, wear my crown. Through the struggles, the fights and the learning pains, I'll rise, I'll thrive, break these chains. Never not learning, always on the grind. An artist's soul, forever entwined. Critique and praise, the art of the game, showcasing my soul, putting out my name. Late nights blend in the morning light, every brush stroke a battle, every line a fight. Social feeds, algorithms, chasing the lights, but it's passion that drives me, fuels my nights. Insecurity always on the grind, an artist's soul forever entwined. Mistakes are lessons, growth in disguise. Through the digital canvas I rise. Embrace the struggle, the journey's a prize. With every setback a new sunrise. Keep grinding, keep shining, never back down. Every stroke, every pose, wear my crown. Through the struggles, the fights and the learning pains, I'll rise, I'll thrive, break these chains. Never not learning, always on the grind. But it's so forever entwined, entwined. From the screen to the heart, my art will flow. In every pixel, my spirit will show. Keep pushing, keep dreaming, never let go. An artist's journey, a constant flow. To the heart, my art will flow. In every pixel, my spirit will show. Keep pushing, keep dreaming, never let go. An artist's journey, a constant flow.